Dustin Johnson produced a final round 67 that included moments like this. 18-foot eagle putt at the 15th hole, and at 23 under par sets a new tournament scoring record as he wins the BMW Championship for a second time. Yes, Dustin Johnson has captured his 12th PGA Tour win with his family by his side on a sunny Sunday in Carmel, Indiana. Golf Central starts now.
Golf Central, brought to you by Titleist.
Well, it was perhaps the ultimate driving and putting machine who eventually triumphed here at Pete Dyer's Crooked Stick Golf Club. For the first time in his career, Dustin Johnson is a three-time winner this season, and it was a three-shot advantage that he eventually brought home over England's Paul Casey, who has now produced back-to-back runner-up finishes for the first time in his PGA Tour career. Cara Robinson alongside a pair of PGA Tour winners, Brandel Chambly and a former world #1, David Duval. Gents, we knew we were witnessing something special, but today confirmed it. Dustin Johnson is truly playing the golf of his life.
And you couldn't get a more ironic name of a golf course for what you see happen at this place. Going back to 1991, John Daly not only was long, he was straight, far from crooked. And of course, in 2012, when Rory McIlroy won the BMW Championship, averaging over 305 yards, hitting 41 fairways, he was long, far from crooked. Dustin Johnson, again, David, my goodness, hitting it upwards of 320, 340 yards, far from crooked.
Yeah, incredibly straight at that distance, to be quite frank. You know, when you're hitting that far, your window is that much tighter to keep it into the fairways, and he managed to do that time and time again. And I just go back to, you know, as a player, there's a few you want to make sure you have a chance to watch hit a golf ball, watch play, watch practice, and that is one of those players, the kind of player that other players stop to see it happening, and there's accounts of that, multiple accounts of that, and it's just that impressive, and the ease with which he's playing golf right now, the freedom he has through the bag from as soon as he steps on the tee through the green, man, this train is rolling, and it's hard to see it stopping.
It is hard to see it stopping. He is a member of the U.S. Ryder Cup team. Today was the last day for many people to impress Captain Love. We will get onto that. But first of all, let's get you caught up on all of the action that we saw here at Crooked Stick this afternoon. And we will start with Paul Casey playing in that final pairing alongside DJ, his second from the rough at the second hole.
Oh, and you really do have to hand it to Paul Casey. He had a three-shot 54-hole lead last week, stumbled on the final day, but bounces right back, playing in the final group again, and early on putting the pressure on Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, that was a great birdie start from him at 2, and again his tee shot here at 3.
Just another beautiful tee shot here. 5-iron, right over the edge of the bunker, just behind the hole. Perfect position, would move to 17 under par, and all of a sudden be a co-leader.
Yeah, it was a quick turn of events, but Dustin Johnson, after a bogey at 3, here at the 4th, trying to get back on the birdie train.
Well, something he hasn't done very well in his career, and that's close out 54-hole leads after a bogey at 2nd, a bogey at the 3rd, a little bit in doubt, bounce back birdie there at the 4th.
Yeah, from 20 feet. That gets him a one-shot lead again at 18. Now to Roberto Castro, though, remember him? He hadn't finished. This was his second at 7.
Beautiful approach shot, staring it down right behind the flag, and yes, that's in. And I, for one, love this reaction.
Yeah.
Like, yep, but you know what? There's a lot more work to do. I want to play in Atlanta.
That was a hole-out eagle from 160, trying to get back to his hometown. DJ after a birdie at 5, putting for par at 6.
That's right, missed the green to the left, hit a pretty darn good chip beneath the hole, but sometimes those par saves feel like eagle putts.
Yeah, that from 16 feet. Now he has a 2-shot lead in his second at the par 4 7th.
And we keep talking about his prowess off the tee and his prowess with the wedge shots, and here's another prime example. He's got a wedge in his hand, puts it perfectly behind the hole, uses the slope, brings it down just underneath the hole to 4 feet and make that birdie.
Yeah, listen to those roars. At 20 under par now, he would take a 3-shot lead. Let's move on to his second at 8.
And you're right, David. How do you stop this train? 318 yards down the middle of the fairway at 7. Birdie. Here you are at the 8. 322 yards. Water everywhere. Well, except where Dustin Johnson's golf ball is. 322 yards off of the tee. Stuffs it inside of 5 feet. Makes another birdie.
Oh, and takes a 4-shot lead. Let's move on to the par 5 11th and his third one here.
There seems to be a little bit of a trend right here with his wedges. Another one, throw it behind the hole perfectly after he was forced to lay up, driving it in the rough. Pulls it back down to just a mere tap in.
Yeah, make birdie there again, takes a 5-shot lead now at 22 under par. And what else can Paul Casey do? Well, he's trying here at 12.
Well, he matched Dustin Johnson's 33 on the opening 9. Made a bogey at the 10th, Paul Casey did, but bounces back beautifully with a nice birdie there at the 12th hole.
That puts him to 18 under, and he sits 4 shots back still remarkably. DJ now after a bogey at 13 here chipping at the par 4 14.
In a real tough spot, too, trying to make certain you don't make back-to-back bogeys and open up the door. It's a beautiful, beautiful pitch shot out of the rough there and save his car.
Yeah, wonderful touch. He now has his 3-shot lead at 21 under, and now his second at the par 5 15.
And to be treated to this 1-2 back and forth at the Open between Stenson and Mickelson, and now here at the BMW between Dustin Johnson and Paul Casey is such a delight. Dustin Johnson stuffs it in there close for eagle. Paul Casey now, David, how's he going to react?
Well, he did a beautiful approach shot in from 250 yards, and knowing he really needs to make it, he does right in the center of the cup, trying to put the pressure on Dustin Johnson.
Just for a whisper, he's only 1 shot back.
Exactly. He's thinking game on, but no, not so much. Dustin Johnson has his own eagle chance.
I'm going to throw a wet towel on that fire, and he did.
Yeah, they both eagled the 15th hole. He retained his 3-shot lead at 23 under par. Now this his second at the fun hole.
329 yards off the tee. David?
Don't shortchange him, you know? And here he does exactly what you have to do. Just get it into the middle of the green, just below the hole. Enjoy your victory march.
And indeed he did, left with just a tap-in par to finish with it. And with that, Dustin Johnson becomes a 3-time winner on the PGA Tour this season, something he has never before achieved in his long, illustrious career. There he sits after that final round 67 at 23 under par. He has risen, as you can see, to the top of the FedEx Cup standings, and he spoke to our Todd Lewis afterwards.
First time that Dustin Johnson has had a 54-hole lead in 2016. Dustin, sometimes that lead can be a burden for some players, and you had a couple of missteps early, and suddenly Paul had tied you. How were you able to recapture yourself and birdie 4 the next 5 and then stretch away?
Well, I didn't, I hit a couple squirrely shots there, I actually hit a good shot on 2. It just, just didn't quite carry far enough. I was trying to carry it behind the hole, and it landed just short and spun all the way to the front, and then hit my first putt a little by and, lipped out the second one. It wasn't like I hit a bad putt, I just lipped it out. And then the same thing on 3, kind of pushed my tee shot, hit a pretty good bunker shot, and then lipped out the par putt. So it wasn't like I wasn't upset or anything. I was a little frustrated I lipped them out, but, it was nice to make a nice birdie on 4 and then, hit 2 good shots on 5, made a nice up and down. So, I've rolled the ball really nicely today. That definitely kept me in there. And then obviously I hit some really nice wedge shots, after the first few holes.
You won a WGC event, you won a playoff event, obviously a major championship. How would you describe your season so far with 1 more left to go?
It's pretty good. It's been pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I got off. I've played really solid all year. A lot of top 5s, a lot of top 10s. 3 wins, which is the most in my career. And it's getting better. So I'm looking forward to the Tour Championship, the Ryder Cup, and next year.
And you may have gained the lead in the Player of the Year race, but we got one more event, and I want to talk about that event. You've had a lot of great things happen on your resume, but have not won the FedEx Cup. What would that mean if indeed in Atlanta you are holding the FedEx Cup?
It definitely mean a lot. I feel like I've played really well this year. I control my own destiny going into it. If I win the tournament, I'll win it all. And that's the goal going into it. That's the only thing I'm going to be focused on. And just go out there and play really good golf and see what happens.
I appreciate your time. Congratulations on your victory.
Thanks.
Dustin Johnson, the winner of the BMW Championship. Carl? Thanks.
So Dustin Johnson has become the second player in the last 20 years to win this event more than once. The only other person, Tiger Woods. Dustin Johnson previously won this at Cog Hill in 2010. As we take a look at the lowest score to par in BMW Championship history, which, by the way, dates all the way back to 1899. Dustin Johnson has set a new record, the lowest score to par in the history of this event at 23 under par, previously produced by Tiger Woods in 2007, and the man who was the defending champion, Jason Day, finished on 22 under par at Conway Farms last year. Jason Day withdrew from this championship earlier on today. We will get to that, but first of all, let's get back to our winner this evening, Brandon, just how he got it done.
Well, power and precision is a formidable weapon, to say the least, but it's filled out with any degree of success with the other clubs. Well, it's almost unbeatable. The plight of Paul Casey, and indeed every player on the PGA Tour right now, certainly played out. If you just watched one hole today, it would have told you the story that Paul Casey was facing. Here at the 7th hole, Dustin Johnson gets up, and again, you're talking about a guy that averaged over 320 yards this week and was 3rd in distance from the edge of the fairway. 3rd. You're talking about a guy that only 2 other players in the field had smaller misses right there at the 7th hole, 318 yards. And take a look at that at the bottom, folks. His proximity from 100 to 125 yards, which is right where this shot left him, was 16 feet, 11 inches. Now look at Paul Casey, who is not short by any stretch of the imagination. And by the way, he led the field in distance from the center of the fairway. Nobody on average hit it closer to the center of the fairway. But this shot was 289 yards off of the tee, which left him 148 yards. His proximity from that distance is 23 feet. So as this plays out, it very much is a numbers game. Paul Casey didn't hit an average shot from 148 yards. Not bad, but it was less than average. By the time this shot finishes, it would be some 35 feet away. Now then, we go back out to the fairway, and there is Dustin Johnson, some 29 yards in front of where Paul Casey hit a shot. And he's coming in with much higher trajectory, much more spin. And again, he didn't hit an average shot from this distance. He hit a far better than average shot. By the time this ball finishes spinning back, it would be right at 4 feet away. His make percentage, you see it right there, is 90.9% from 4 feet away. You could almost just give it to him. Back to Paul Casey from 35 feet away, outside of 25 feet, it is rare. Even when the best in the world make a putt, less than 5% of the time are they making one from outside of 25 feet. Paul Casey, with a reasonable effort, taps in for his par. One of the best players in the world going up against Dustin Johnson, who taps in for his birdie. Over one hole, you get a sense of the picture. Over a day, over a week, and indeed, you're going to see this play out for the rest of Dustin Johnson's career. And take a look at what distance off of the tee with accuracy and putting does for you. In 1999, the man sitting to my left, David Duval, was the 11th man to make it to #1 in the world. He did it with great driving, great putting, 4 wins, 12 top 10s. Tiger Woods, arguably the best season of all time, led the PGA Tour in total driving, was one of the best on the PGA Tour in putting, 9 wins, 17 top 10s, and that's what Dustin Johnson did this week. One of the best in the field at finding fairways, the longest in the field, and led the field in putting. And indeed, it's his first major win season, first 3 win season, and very much like David Duval, Tiger Woods, well on his way to #1 world ranking. It'll take him a couple more weeks, only because the tour's taking a break, David.
Yeah, it's hard not to see him in that. And he's actually talked about that he wants to be #1. Go back to the U.S. Open, and you could hear the sound of him acknowledging that was the goal, and he recognizes that he has all those skills. But I want to go back to yesterday in his interview after the round when they said, well, what type of approach will you take into the final round with your 3-shot cushion? And he's basically said, why would I do anything different? You know, I'm going to keep doing this, because when you drive the golf ball like that, when I drove the golf ball like that, when Tiger drove the golf ball like that, you'd be silly and foolish not to use it and pull it out. And the only places he didn't hit driver was basically where the golf course prevented him from hitting driver. So he has the utmost confidence in that. He knows if he hits it good, he's going to have a wedge into the hole. And now he has the best wedge game in the game of golf as well. you got to take your weapons and take advantage of them, and exactly what you're seeing them do.
And it is so hard, you know this, David, to work on the things that are not necessarily tidy in your game without appreciably losing something in another department, because you have to take and put the time in, so you're not giving the time to something else. So it's amazing to watch somebody address a weakness and then so fluidly attack and dominate that weakness, and that's exactly what Dustin Johnson has done, and that's why we're seeing such beautiful golf out of him.
You mentioned this was Dustin Johnson's first major win season. That is one of 3 wins he now has in 2016. The other man with 3 wins in 2016 is Jason Day, who was hoping to have a run for Player of the Year. He may well still do that in Eastlake, but this is what happened today to the world #1, his second shot on the second hole.
Well, it hasn't been the best of weeks before he withdrew with a bad back. He was straying from the fairway, not necessarily precise coming into the greens and paying the price for it.
And here he is trying to count on that putter to bail him out. He'd make that miss that par, making a bogey, falling back to 4 under.
Yeah, now here on the third, this would be his second from the bunker at a par 3.
And you just don't see this very often. A cold shank, #1 player in the world, and he would go on to make a double bogey. And you see him sort of gingerly walking out of there.
And after his tee shot at 9, he would withdraw. For more on Jason Day, let's send it to Todd Lewis.
Well, Jason Day was playing the front 9, and after a tee shot on the 9th hole, he bent down to pick up his tee, and that's when he re-aggravated a pinched joint capsule in his lower back. Now, he's had, of course, back issues before. As a matter of fact, a year ago at the Tour Championship, his back was bothering him. And if you remember this year at the WGC Dell Match Play, he was fighting a back issue as well. Now, he left the golf course deciding to pull out of the BMW Championship. It was a precautionary move, according to Jason. He didn't want to create any further damage to his back. He immediately went to the clubhouse behind me and got treatment from his trainer, Cornell Dreesen. Now, by him withdrawing from the BMW Championship, he did not get any FedEx Cup points. Another interesting note, he is now no longer eligible for the Varden Trophy, which goes to the player at season's end with the lowest scoring average. Jason, by the way, was leading in that category coming into the BMW Championship. Now, this week, he will get an MRI on his back. I spoke with Bud Martin, who is his manager, and I asked him, does he plan to be in Atlanta for the Tour Championship? And Bud said, we'll know more later in the week, meaning after the MRI. Plan is to play Atlanta. Fingers are crossed. So we're going to have to wait a few days, maybe a little more than a week, to find out if Jason Day will indeed be in Atlanta at Eastlake for the Tour Championship. Cara?
Thanks, Todd. Well, let's take a little look at what Jason Day's withdrawal has done to his FedEx Cup position. He has slipped down to #4, but he remains within the magical top 5. If you win in Eastlake and you enter within the top 5 in the FedEx Cup standings, you will win the FedEx Cup. Dustin Johnson elevates to #1. Patrick Reed 2nd. Paul Casey, interestingly, has moved in #5, which means Rory McIlroy doesn't go to Eastlake inside the top 5. Adam Scott, after another 4th place finish, sits in #3. Both Adam and Jason will be looking to become the first Australian to ever win the FedEx Cup. And when we come back, we'll update you on the Bubble Boys. Yes, who played their way in and who played their way out of the top 30 standings, who will progress to the Tour Championship, and who impressed Captain Love today may have been the last opportunity to do so. We'll show you who's in and who could be out after this.
Golf Central is brought to you by Titleist, the #1 ball at the BMW Championship. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. Bushnell Golf and the Tour X. Slope technology when you want it. Tournament legal when you need it.